Hello, I'm Priyanka. I work with ATRI. ATRI is a private research institution based out of Bangalore. I broadly work in the area of water resource management, especially trying to understand and assess interactions between anthropogenic activities and their impact on water quality. In addition to this, I also use both natural science and social science approaches to develop solutions for sustainable wastewater treatment. Industrial sector contributes significantly to our economic growth. Some of the important industries are sugarcane processing, textile industries, pharmaceutical industries, as well as mining industry. Now, these industries ends up using huge quantities of water. According to the recent estimates, around 500 million liters of industrial effluents are generated every day, out of which only 40% is treated and rest 60% is discharged either into open stormwater drains or to the lakes or to rivers. Now, while these water bodies receive both domestic effluents, domestic wastewater, as well as industrial effluents, domestic wastewater is more visible because of the nature of contaminants in it. As you know, domestic effluents have a lot of organic content in it, which gets decomposed over the period of time and is not harmful to human beings. But if you consider industrial effluents, it contains a lot of toxic chemicals like pesticides, trace metals, antibiotics and pharmaceutical residues, which have far more negative impact. These contaminants coming from industrial effluents basically stays in the environment for longer duration of time. As a result, these contaminants either they settle down in the sediments or percolate into the groundwater, or they are or industrial effluents, when they are used for irrigation, they enter the food chain, thereby posing significant risk to human health as well as to the aquatic life. There are three important measures that cities should adopt to prevent industrial pollution and associated health risks. The first measure is awareness. Creating awareness among citizens about the negative impacts of industrial effluents is very important. At present, surface water bodies, unlike lakes, rivers and open drains, are considered as conduits whose main objective is to flush out contaminants out from the cities. But these water bodies in peri-urban regions are used for irrigating crops, and as a result, the contaminants get accumulated and enter food chain, thereby posing risks to consumers as well as to farmers. Therefore, creating awareness among citizens is very important, making them aware that it's not just flushing out of the contaminants, but contaminants also comes back in their plates or as a food product. So, and this will demand, or this will call for better regulation and stricter enforcement of environmental laws. The second measure is setting standards. At present, when a water body is used for irrigation, the water should comply with 4 standards, which are salinity, conductivity, boron content, and pH. Now, these standards were set keeping in mind soil fertility. Whereas, given that these water bodies also receive industrial contaminants, it's important to set standard for trace metals, for pesticides, depending upon what kind of industries are operating in the catchment. And standards should be set keeping in mind risks to human health as well as aquatic flora and fauna, rather than soil fertility. Soil fertility is also important, but priority should be given to risks to human health. And the third measure is monitoring. So once the awareness is created and we have a regular set of standards, it's important to monitor the quality at the point of discharge as well as at the source. At present, if you look, the regulatory agency monitors pollution from point sources, which are industries, once in 3 months. And they also monitor surface water bodies, which are basically receiving these effluents, once in 4 months. So there are two major gaps in this kind of sampling. First, the sampling of the point of source as well as the receiving water bodies are carried out at different times. So it doesn't gives us an idea whether the enforcement and compliance of industries is resulting in improvement or in the surface water quality. The second important gap is that when the water is collected for analysis, it's just the grab sample. Now, when you collect a grab sample basically gives you snapshot of water quality at that particular instant. It doesn't tell you what's happening throughout the day. Our research on the Rishabhavati River has shown that most of the pollution from industries enter the rivers during the wee hours, that is during the night when nobody is watching. And during the day, because there is also domestic effluent coming in, so the dilution happens and industrial contaminants gets diluted. So therefore, it's very important to have load-based monitoring as well as real-time monitoring of these contaminants to prevent industrial pollution and make sure that the compliance as well as enforcement and regulations are put in better use.
Hi, I'm Srinivasan Sekar. I've been in the sustainable solutions space, primarily targeting water, wastewater, and electricity for the last about 10 years or so. And today what I'm going to talk about is something that we had implemented for solving our water requirement in an apartment complex with about 100 apartments almost a decade ago, which has been working without any issues for the last 10 years. Okay, so I lived in a place called TZ, towards zero energy development, in Whitefield, Bangalore. And we had water issues in terms of availability of water during summer and flooding during monsoons that most of Bangalore face every year. And so during summer, like when the borewells dry up and water tankers become very expensive, it becomes a real emotional and economic challenge for many apartment complexes to get enough water requirements for their daily need. And second major issue that happens is during monsoon, many places there is a lot of flooding that occurs. And as a result, even when there is plenty of water, there is a problem, and there's no water, there's a problem. And I felt that this happens on a cycle basis in Bangalore, and there must be a way in which we can connect one with the other and solve both the problems. So in TZ, we went and did a pilot by trying to see if we can treat sewage water, which is a mandate across Bangalore, where we do treat sewage water through a sewage treatment plant, to a level wherein it does not contain any pathogens. And of course, it may contain some inorganic compounds like nitrates, phosphates, sulfates, etc., but no pathogens. And this water in most places is used for gardening. But since in many apartment complexes, the garden space is very limited, only a very small part of the treated water is used and rest of it is wasted. So it came to it occurred to me that instead of wasting the balance of the water, can we further treat it and remove these nitrates, phosphates, sulfates, and anything else that is undesirable, and make it a potable water in a sustainable fashion, thereby reducing the total daily water requirement, since we are getting most of that water that we use back in the sewage. If we treat that water, we get back most of the water that we used in an earlier day. And if we can recirculate what I called at that time a closed loop system, then every day the only water that we need fresh would be the water that evaporates, and that water that is used for plants that goes into the earth. Both of these are supplied back by nature through rains and through shallow wells or even bore wells. So with a little bit of engineering, going from the sewage treatment plant's treated water to the centralized RO system that was there, which is required for treating borewell water with high inorganic salts, TDS, what's called TDS, total dissolved solids. So we were able to successfully create a closed loop system, and we did a pilot. We did blind studies to take care of people's psychological needs. One of the biggest challenges for this was not technology, but psychology, because people do not like to use water that they think was there in the sewage yesterday, even though they know that all water through the entire human life on Earth, like more than 10,000 years, is recycled water. So there's no new water that's created or coming from space into Earth. It is just today's fresh water was yesterday's sewage and will be tomorrow's sewage. And it is there as fresh water only for a short time. And then this cycle keeps going around, even though this is something that everybody knows, etc. But there was a psychology issue in trying to take our own sewage treated water, even though it is treated water, and then make it potable. We did a lot of blind studies. We demonstrated to the residents that there is no way they can find out the source of water from the RO water that they get in the tap. And eventually, we were able to convince the residents. This system was operational sometime in October 2012. And this is October 2020. For 8 years, this system has been working perfectly without a single failure or single issue in anywhere in the treatment in the entire cycle. This system is a scalable system. Like the city of Singapore uses 40% of their water requirements using the same system. So it is a scalable system. Of course, the individual components of the solution, like the RO plant or the sewage treatment plant, need to be of different technology or much larger for larger installations. But it is definitely doable in almost all the apartment complexes in any metro, including Bangalore. Of course, in almost all cases, the single biggest impediment is to get a buy-in from all the residents because of the psychology issues that I talked about. Especially one critical thing that happens in India is because people are religious, they don't feel comfortable using a RO water that came from sewage in their religious requirements. And in such cases, I just told them that to buy a bottle of RO water from the shop for that purpose. But otherwise, you are getting a good quality water from the sewage. So this type of solutions are the need of the hour as Earth is now expanding in terms of human population. The demand for water is going up and the source of water is constant. And of course, Earth has got a large amount of water, but 97% of the water is seawater. So it is not usable. Freshwater source is very small, and bulk of that fresh water is also not available in urban areas, etc. It is mostly locked up in Iceland and other places. So this type of solution will be the norm of the hour as civilization progresses. And so I think this is one example of a sustainable solution where once it's implemented, it keeps giving you a solution on a daily basis without much of a supervision or oversight. To maintain a sewage treatment plant properly, then you are assured that the pathogens don't show up, and we do regular testing. One of the things that we do is on a regular basis, we test the STP treated water as well as RO water. And as soon as we see there is any contamination anywhere, we check the system thoroughly. In fact, most of the contaminations we have found are not in these systems, but are probably in the tap or in the source of pipes or some other place, rarely because of this process. Most of the time, the SCP plant is functioning perfectly fine. We do replace the media as recommended by the STP vendor on a periodic basis, and we regularly check, every week we check the quality of STP treated water, and we have found that never in these 8 years has it failed even once in releasing pathogens in the treated water. And likewise, the RO system as well as an ozonizer, and there are redundant systems in this solution which ensure that even if one doesn't work, something else will catch it. And so what is supplied to the residents never gets a pathogen.